this is Anna from Savvy Cat Realty, and today I'm here to talk to you about buying cars in Portugal and getting a car in Portugal. What are the options you have? What do you need? What you need to consider? What taxes you pay? Basically all of that. So for those of you who don't know, Savvy Cat Realty is a relocation and investment agency that helps expats settle in Portugal from a lifestyle perspective. We work in the whole country. Basically, we help people figure out the best location for them to live according to their own lifestyle needs. Our service is always very tailored. We work with both rentals and buying and all of the budgets. So if this makes sense for you, do check out our website where we list our services very transparently with all the information you need. And feel free to reach out to us to contact.savvycatrealty.com. So going into today's topic, buying cars in Portugal, what you need to know and what are the options you have. So the first thing is, of course, what do I need to buy a car? And that would be the most important thing is always the NIF number. The NIF number is the thing you always need to get once you get to Portugal. You really have no way around it. Like the first thing you take care of if you want to come to Portugal is the NIF number and then the bank account. And all of our services packages, most of our service package include this to help you getting this NIF number and bank account. And of course your valid ID, which tends to be the passport. If you already have a resident card, then it can be the resident card, but most foreigners tend to use the passport. And then there is this technical requirement that you should have proof of a Portuguese residence, and technically you should have proof of legal visa. In reality, they don't really ask that. They just ask you to have a Portuguese address to send the documentation to. And I have never seen a case where they actually check your visa at all, especially because visas in Portugal are generally stupidly delayed. So you just need to have a Portuguese address. It doesn't even have to be the same address that you have in the NIF number. They just need an address for the file. So generally you are able to purchase a car even if your residence process has not finished, or even if your address is not in Portugal yet. So what options do you have when buying a car? The first one would be, of course, buying new and going to one of the main stands of the brand you are interested in. You would get the guarantee associated to that brand. The guarantees vary from brand to brand. I would, of course, recommend if you're buying new to look for a brand that has more years of guarantee. The bare minimum is 3 years, but there's a number of brands that do more than 3 years. And generally they do the same policy in all of Europe. There's rarely different policies according to Portugal, and specific to Portugal, I mean. When the new cars do only have 3 years of guarantee, it is often much more interesting to buy what we call semi-used. So we call that the semi-usado, which tends to be the showroom cars from the dealership that then get sold with very little mileage and basically new. And generally they offer 3 years stand guarantee on these types of cars, which is the same as many brands offer of 3 years. So it can be a very interesting relationship of having almost the same guarantee that you have in a new car with a lower price point. And then of course you just have to deal with the brands, and the best thing is, of course, to make a good purchase and research the car you are getting. I'm not at all a car expert, and I've made my own mistakes. Right now, I wouldn't recommend anyone buying a Peugeot, but that's a whole other story. So overall, do your research and see whether or not the car you are buying is already known to have problems. And it's very rare that the dealerships will be transparent about that. They don't really have to, unfortunately. So do your research on the model you are getting and overall buying new or semi-new is quite safe, and the biggest risks you will have will be problems that are from the brand itself. Then of course you have the option to buy used, and buying used can be done either from a dealership or a private sale. When it's done with the dealership tends to take care of everything regarding paperwork. So they will do the registry of the cards and give you the documento único, and will give you all the documentation from the inspeção, from the EPO. So those are basically the main things that you need when you are buying a used car in Portugal. You will need to do the registry that usually generally costs between 50 and 65 euros. Just basically registering the sale and changing the ownership of the vehicle. And then you need to have the documento único. Yes, you need to have the documento único, which is basically the ID of the car. It used to be a paper little booklet that you could open, and now on the more modern ones it's kind of like an ID card. And you also need to ask for the documentation from the last inspection. So there are mandatory inspections on most vehicles, as you know, and they vary depending on how new the car is. For the first 5 years, you only need to do it after 3 years on a new vehicle. Then it's 2 years until it's, I don't know if it's 6 or 7 years old, and then it's yearly. So you need to know what's the age of the vehicle, when the last inspection was done, so you know when you will have to do the inspection next. And you also have an yearly cost that you pay on your vehicle, which is the IUC, Imposto Único de Circulação. Our country loves taxes, okay? They really love taxes. So you have Imposto Único de Circulação that is calculated based on a model and pollution, air pollution, and a bunch of things. And you pay it yearly, and it's always a good idea to check that amount, especially with the new laws regarding environmental policies and so on. They use that as kind of an excuse to increase taxes on older vehicles. So do keep that in mind, and do check the cost of the IUC for the vehicle you are buying. When you are buying new, or we're currently on the used, so let's keep on that and I'll go over that later. Anyway, so when you are buying used, those are the documentations you need to check. When it's through a dealership, they generally have all of that taken care of for you and give you everything sorted out. Most dealerships, a lot of dealerships have a year guarantee on used cars. Some of them have 3 years, but that tends to be more on those semi-new vehicles that I was talking about. It's not as common on older new vehicles, older used vehicles. Gee. So it's generally recommended to do through a vehicle because you do have that year thing. As someone that doesn't know about cars, it is very easy to deceive me. Even if I check the car, I wouldn't know anything about it. And there is also, you can check through the license plate, you can check if that car had any history, if it had any accidents and that sort of thing. So that's always something that is nice to check when you are looking at a used car. But overall, the safest option is, of course, to that year guarantee, because more likely, if the car has problems, it will give out those problems in that year. So if you buy private, you are always taking a bigger risk, but it generally is also slightly cheaper. There's a lot of Portugal is not one of the worst places when it comes to car prices, but it's also definitely not the cheapest in the European Union or anything close to that. And that's why importing from the European Union is often also a popular choice. So importing for the European Union, of course, has its own costs. So you will have the cost of transporting the car from wherever it comes from. The most common tends to be France or Germany. So someone will have to drive that car here and then do the registration of that car here. That involves paying ISF, which is the Imposto sobre o Automóvel. So that's basically the vehicle tax that generally is paid on new vehicles. So when you import something, you will have to pay that tax because it's entering the country. And if you import it new, you will also have to pay the 23% VAT. So if it's from the European Union, and depending on how you buy it, you may get it self-deducted. So you may get it back later. But overall, there are also companies that specialize in importing cars from the European Union, and it can definitely be an affordable option to get nice cars at lower prices, but that will basically pretty much forego all guarantees too. So it's, in the end, it's a matter of pros and cons, and it will have, of course, importation costs, but very often the final cost will still be lower than buying the same vehicle here in Portugal. So it may be worth a look. It's also important, of course, to remember that this process are generally not instant. Even when the companies that do this for you, they will go get the car for you, but you will not have the car the day after, of course. It will take like a week to a month at least. And then the legalization process always takes a while. You can drive the car before it's fully legalized here, but then the registry and so on and so forth generally takes between 1 and 3 months because our services are known not to be very fast. So these are generally the options that you have regarding buying vehicles in Portugal. And then, of course, you also have the leasing option, which is becoming increasingly popular because it gives guarantee regarding maintenance and so on. And if you have any problem in the vehicle, the company that is doing the leasing will take care of it. So it's becoming increasingly popular among users and companies in general. You will have this monthly installment, a bit like renting, and at the end you have the option to buy the vehicle. From what I've researched from my own company, leasing does tend to be significantly more expensive than, for example, a loan for the same vehicle would be. And when I say significantly, for the options I was having, like the loan would cost me something like 300 euros a month, and the lease would cost me something like 600. So it was basically double. So I believe this probably varies from vehicle to vehicle, and it can be a great way to have peace of mind because you don't have to worry if there's mechanical problems. The company has to provide you with a substitute and take care of mechanical problems on their own, so it doesn't come out of pocket to you. So like going that, of course, loans are also an option. And car loans are completely unique category of loans here in Portugal, and you generally have pretty decent rates that are specific to car loans. You just need to send all your financial information to prove that you are able to do these loans. These loans are accessible to foreigners the same way that a house loan would be, and they would just ask you for your income and for your financial documentation in order to process these loans. Most of the stands have these loans integrated, and most of the stands will also sell you their insurance. Generally, the insurance that you get through the stands more often than not tends to be more expensive than getting it privately elsewhere, but it tends to be very practical to do just everything in the stand and get it done with. So with leasing, that's another thing that you don't really have to worry about because the insurance is the responsibility of the company who is leasing to you. And then, of course, there's renting that generally leasing tends to be more for a longer term, and not a lot of people do renting on a long term. So leasing contracts tend to be like minimum a year, that often are like 2 or more years. I think between 1 and 3 years tends to be the normal on leasing contracts, while rentals, it's a lot more common to have them or in a shorter period, and they often end up being more expensive for a longer time frame. But they are an option and can be very useful if you are looking at a shorter time frame. So I believe this covers more or less everything you need to know about buying vehicles in Portugal and what your options are and what you need. Another thing that I would like to mention, that is a bit of a side note, is that when you come to Portugal as a foreigner, your driving license being valid will depend on the accords with your country. Within European Union, you generally don't have to do anything extra and the license is valid. But if you are coming from outside of the European Union, you have a 6-month period that you can drive using your local license, and then you have to either convert it or take the driving test in order to obtain a Portuguese license. This varies, like I said, from country to country, and it's a bureaucratic process that can take a while. So if your country is one of those that you need to obtain the conversion of the driving license, which for example the US is, it is definitely advisable to get that checked out once you come here, because the process will take a while and it will take a while to get your appointments done. So even if you have those 6 months, it's generally advisable to start the process as early as possible. So I believe this is all the advice I have to give you regarding buying. Like I said, I'm not the biggest expert on cars, so I couldn't give you specific advice on that, but I hope that this was helpful, at least to give you an overview of the options you have here. And we are here every week giving information about Portugal and trying to be useful on your journey here. If you find this information indeed useful to you, please do subscribe to our channel. We are here every week. We also have a lot of free information on our blog and our website, www.savvycatrealty.com. And of course, you can always reach out directly to us at contact@savvycatrealty.com. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope I see you all again next week. Bye!